Guys, welcome to another Founder Wisdom Pod with Flavio Arbex with us today. He's managing director at Oito Management. It's an M&A firm, has a cool background, worked for PWC, Accenture, and huge companies. He's also a mentor at the Brazil conference at Harvard and MIT. So quite excited to interview him. Flavio, can you tell us a bit more about yourself and Oito?
Hi, Dane, Charles. Thank you so much for having me with you. How everybody? Talking a little bit about myself. Well, born here in São Paulo, Brazil. Lived a bunch of years here until my 20s, and then start traveling around the world doing consultancy, like Charles said, within Accenture and PricewaterhouseCoopers and my company as well. Most of this time with my company, doing projects in Vietnam, Singapore, Indonesia, Asia in general, Europe, United States, and here in Latin America.
That's pretty cool. Well, tell us about your experience at PWC and Accenture. What did you learn from your time there?
Oh, always pleasant to be within these companies, these huge companies. The idea there was to learn to do consultancy for these huge multinational or national companies here in Brazil and abroad. Basically, learn the complexities and the differences about doing business in these huge companies, not only here in Brazil, but also in other countries as well.
Right. And Oito, what do you guys do there? I see M&A, I see interim management. So tell us about the services you offer.
Okay, perfect. Here about Oito, I launched Oito in 2008, 2009, with the idea to do consultancy for small and middle cap companies, family-owned business, here in Brazil and probably in other developing countries. Most of the companies are small. We have around 20 million companies here in Brazil, but about 16 million companies are smaller in middle cap companies. So the idea was to do consultancy for these companies, like related to strategy and financial strategy for these companies. But then suddenly in the last 6 years, I've been doing like 90% of my clients, they are mergers and acquisitions, sell-side mandates here in Brazil.
Right. And mergers and acquisitions, you told me yesterday or the day before that you do 3 of these transactions per year. It's not big businesses and small and medium businesses. So what are we talking about precisely? Like, let's say you take 2 manufacturing companies, they both produce paper, they make 5-10 million a year. You make them one business. So tell us about the process. Who absorbs who, for what amount, and what you get paid in the process?
Okay, I developed my expertise and my positioning here in Brazil really focus on doing business with private equity firms. So most of my clients, they are not so small. They tend to earn like 100-200 million reais per year, which is around $20 million per year, $40-50 million per year. So the majority of the time is like funding this business, this small type of business with private equity funds. So the very beginning of my work is to help them positioning themselves to fund their business and to find a way to grow faster in the next year. So I do all the negotiations with these private equity funds, and then sometimes I do the post-merge integration as well, like find ways to direct these investments to the right places and to generate the right value that we identified prior in the negotiations.
All right. So you enter this business, you help them with funding and so forth. When is a merger's the right solution? VS, when is an acquisition? Because mergers are sort of complicated. A lot of them fail. You really need to find the right partners most of the time, from a culture fit, from a finance fit, from the more all departments can be aligned, the better. And then like how can both of these companies win? Well, one is bigger than the other. There needs to be some roles that either are slash or like repositioned. So it's kind of real complex. A merger is, when is it right to merge and when is it right to straight up acquire?
Okay, it depends a lot of the moment of the owners of the company. Like some of the companies, they don't have a very structured succession plan, and maybe the guys are too old. They don't have anyone in their families to succeed them, and then they need sometimes they need to sell 100% of the company to a strategic buyer. Sometimes they are really young, like people in the 20s, 30s, 40s. They found a business. They found a business and they want to grow faster and faster. And when we come here in Brazil or other parts of the world, developing countries especially, we have all the same sources of money and capital to fund this business. But because we are in a developing country like Brazil, sometimes banks are not the straightforward alternative, because they put very high interest rates to fund the business with debt. And sometimes we need to find alternatives in the equity side. And part of the time, the equity side is like cheaper than the debt side. That's why they hire me to find these alternatives. I don't work at all with that. I only work with ECM markets, like equity capital markets.
Right. In Brazil, I mean, huge population, lots of economic development. You have a foot on the ground. Tell us like the trends there. What if I would have to invest my money in Brazil or attack the Brazilian market? Where should I place my bets?
Okay, I'm not saying that because I'm Brazilian, but because of being like trying to understand the world. But we have our challenges as well, as anyone in the world has. Like US has its challenges, Europe as well, and then we have Russia and we have China. Like Brazil is a very peaceful place in the world in that sense. We don't have in our history any type of war. Besides of that, we have a very strong institutional environment. It brings some complexities sometimes, but it's fine. It's like any place in the world. And our inflation is manageable. Our inflation is dropping a lot, and we have already entered the phase to decline interest rates. So the moment here in Brazil is very, very interesting because our FX rate is very high as well. Like our dollar to our real to dollar is five reais to $1. And if we consider the Big Mac index, our current dollar should be around 430, 440, and we are like devaluated in about 20%. So very, very interesting moment to bring capital to Brazil and invest companies here in Brazil. Most of our public companies are undervalued as well in the stock market. Like they are trading below 4 times EBITDA, 3 times EBITDA. Very strong companies, very strong governance. It's the very right time to invest in healthcare, in logistics, infrastructure, industries, any type of business. It's like we have everything to do, basically.
What about tech?
Oh, very interesting question. A lot of development in the tech side. We have very strong human capital here in Brazil. Very competent people in the tech side. We have this competition with India. A lot of opportunities, but they are very small companies here in Brazil in the tech side. For someone that has a focus on VCs and to consolidate small companies, very, very interesting moments. We don't have very large IT companies, tech companies here.
Right. On your side, what are your goals for the rest of this year? What do you want to accomplish?
Oh, I really would like to close two of the deals that I'm charging in. Like I'm traveling in the next 2 days to Mexico to negotiate a company with a Mexican company. A strategic buyer wants to buy a company here in Brazil, and I'm doing another company starting negotiations in the logistics side. My goal would be to close these 2 deals and preparing the pipeline for the next year.
Love it. Where can people find out more about you, Flavio?
So passionate about studying, traveling, meet new people. Like I love this type of conversations like we are having now, Charles. Anyone who sees this video, please be good to contact me. It'll be my pleasure to develop new contacts.
Love it. And people can find out more about your websites. It's Oito Management, OITO management.com. And Flavio can be found on LinkedIn at Flavio Arbex, Arbex. I am Charles, your host of CEO Wisdom Podcast. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in.